James Robinson. Could you state your name?
Tyler James Robinson.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Robinson. I'm Judge Graff. Mr. Skordas.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You're probably already aware of my presence or why I'm here, but if not, I am not entering an appearance. I'm not counsel on this case. I'm working with the county to get counsel assigned, but we need you to allow for the appointment of counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Skordas. I want to go through the qualifications
Absolutely.
For indigency, but that is my intent, Mr. Skordas.
Very well.
And I thank you for being here. So, Mr. Robinson, you have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, the court can appoint an attorney to represent you. I have reviewed your declaration of financial status and find that you are indigent. I'm provisionally appointing a Rule 8 qualified attorney to represent you on your case, Mr. Robinson. Along with their filing of their appearance of counsel, the assigned attorneys must file declarations with the court that outline their qualifications under Rule 8 and Rule 8C, under Rule 8B and Rule 8C for a counsel appointment in a case where death may be a sentencing option. I'm ordering that those declarations be filed prior to the next hearing date, which is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. Mr. Robinson, I also wish to inform you of your rights against self-incrimination. Anything that you say in court today could be used against you, and we want to protect your constitutional rights. Mr. Robinson, at this time, you will remain in custody without bail. Mr. Skordas, is there any other points that you wish to address?
No, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Turning to the state.
Yes, Your Honor, Chad Grunander for the state. I'm also joined, and they're listed as attendees, Ryan McBride, Lauren Hunt, David Sturgill, and Chris Ballard. We are the trial team on this case. I do have a few points I'd like to bring up with Your Honor. We have filed a pretrial protective order on behalf of Erica Kirk. We would ask the court to review that. It should be in your queue, Your Honor, and sign that.
Thank you. I have reviewed the pretrial protective order and will be issuing this pretrial protective order in favor of Erica Kirk. Is there any other business that we need to address today, counsel?
Just for the court's information, we did file just recently, within the last few minutes, a notice of intent to seek the death penalty that was filed by Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray. So that should be in the court's file. Lastly, I would just indicate to the court and to, at this point, Mr. Robinson, that we are prepared to collect all of the discovery in this matter and get that turned over to the defense as soon as possible. Rule 16 requires us to provide what we have relied on in charging the information and bringing these charges within 5 days once it's requested. So that'll be prepared to disseminate to the defense as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Grunander. Mr. Robinson, what I also want to do is you have the right to have the charges read that you stand charged of, and I wish to read those to you at this time. Thank you. Mr. Robinson, for count 1, aggravated murder, a capital felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-5-202, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty or pursuant to Utah Code 76-3-207.7, a mandatory term of imprisonment for life without parole or an indeterminate term of not less than 25 years, and that may be for life. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice, if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider as an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent criminal offense in the presence of a child. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-11-210 sub 2 and 3C, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson discharged a firearm in the direction of Charlie Kirk, knowing or having reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may be endangered by the discharge of the firearm and that the act caused serious bodily injury to Charlie Kirk. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice, if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor. The sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent offense in the presence of a child. Count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson, with intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or pursuant to any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, conceal or remove the firearm used to shoot Charlie Kirk, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or a first-degree felony. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, with an intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, destroyed, concealed, or removed the clothing he wore during the shooting, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or first-degree felony. Count 5, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-508, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony, information, a document, or an item, to wit, directing his roommate to delete incriminating text messages. Count 6, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-508, in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information, to wit, directing his roommate to stay silent if the police questioned the roommate. Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.10 sub 2 and 3-203.14 sub 3A little double I, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, committed criminal homicide in the physical presence of a child younger than 14 years of age, with knowledge that a child was present and that may have been seen or heard the commission of the criminal homicide. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2, Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson, this case is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. It will be a waiver hearing, and I will be the judge assigned to this case. Mr. Robinson, I invite you to join us at that time. Is there anything further, counsel?
No, Your Honor, we'll have counsel appointed by then. Thank you.
Mr. Gurander, anything further?
One item, just for clarification, Your Honor, the hearing on the 29th, is that in person or WebEx?
Thank you. That is a great question. It will be via WebEx.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
All right. I want to thank all parties for being here, and this concludes this hearing at this time. Court is in recess.
All right.
You have been watching that court hearing for the man suspected of shooting and killing Charlie Kirk last week on a campus in Utah. You saw the suspected assassin, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson there, not speaking, wearing what appeared to be some kind of green vest, as the judge read out the 7 charges against him, including, of course, aggravated murder. The state making clear that they are seeking the death penalty and putting in place, the judge did, a protective order, apparently at the request of the state, for Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow. I want to bring in Danny Savalos. I want to bring back Steve Patterson, who's live for us in Utah. Danny, as we noted, that was a virtual and fairly quick court proceeding here. September 29th, that'll be the next one for Tyler Robinson.
These hearings are quick anyway, and that's before court started doing virtual appearances where the suspect doesn't even need to leave the jail. In fact, it might have even been shorter. Normally, a defendant will waive the reading of the formal charges or the indictment, but I suspect that in a case of this much national interest, the judge just wanted to make extra certain there was no doubt that the defendant was informed of the charges against him. That avoids him having to even speak. It makes it cleaner, although it adds just a few minutes onto what could otherwise be a matter of seconds in some cases.
And is the 29th when we would expect to hear Robinson enter a plea? He, it sounds like, does not have an attorney yet, although one will be appointed.
Yes, in all likelihood, and this is no surprise for a crime of this magnitude. Given what little we know about him, it's unlikely he would have the funds to pay for his own private counsel. So no surprise. The only real question is whether or not he'll get the public defender, which I suspect he will not. He's more likely to get appointed private counsel. And here's the key. They have to be death penalty qualified. That requires a ton of extra training. And people who handle those capital cases are almost always court appointed. It's very rare that a capital murder case involves a defendant who's well-heeled enough to pay for private counsel.
Noting here, too, some of the paperwork is just into us on that protective order that the court finds the defendant represents a credible threat to the physical safety of that person here being Erica Kirk. Danny, stand by for a second. I want to go back to Steve Patterson here. And Steve, it has been a remarkable series of developments over the course of the last several hours as state officials, the Utah attorney there earlier in the day described, and the charging documents, some of these probable cause documents showed step by step, almost minute by minute in some instances, how they closed in on this 22-year-old as their suspect.
They did, and in doing so, we got the TikTok, we got the charges. Also,
these, the exchange of text messages between Robinson and his roommate. These are details that we simply didn't have before. One thing that sort of gels with what we saw in the text messages, this exchange again before and after between Robinson and roommate, who believed to be romantically linked, is how cognizant and lucid Robinson appears. And I would say that for looking at this video, although unblinking, so unblinking and eerily at times that it almost appears like the video is frozen. Just want to comment a little bit more on the physical appearance of Robinson, appearing over WebEx on video. Appears to be wearing what is described to me as a safety smock. We know he's on a special hold, right? They're going to hold him there in a separate unit before they evaluate his mental health, before they put him in maybe a more different location, a more general location. They do that as a matter of procedure, right? But it is sort of interesting. He did say one thing, which was his name, which was stated clearly and firmly. And again, I want to say gels with sort of what we saw in that exchange of text messages, because he's talking to his roommate, who clearly appears to have no idea, the roommate, what is going on, or that he is the suspected shooter. And yet he's sort of talking a TikTok of what he has done and why he's done it, and admitting to do it, essentially shocking this roommate through these series of exchanges, which sort of gels with his physical appearance today. Obviously, we also heard during the hearing the Utah County following the course of action to introduce the death penalty as well. That was filed as this was being read in court. So definitely some developments here today. And just the amount of information that we got, the blanks that were filled in.
That's right.
Not only that, but also on the apprehension, the involvement of the mother as well, and sort of bringing him in. And also the physical evidence, the DNA found on the actual trigger of the rifle, which was tied to not only what was found on the screwdriver, but also the towel used to wrap the rifle. So an extraordinary amount of information that we got, especially with this charging document that's now in.
What's also clear from these text exchanges laid out, Steve, is that Robinson had no intention of being caught. And I say that because he said he had hoped to die of old age with this being his secret, according to what the state had laid out in this text exchange. Almost seemed panicked when describing trying to go back to return to retrieve the rifle that he allegedly shot Charlie Kirk with, not being able to do so when essentially caught out by his parents, when his parents approached him and said, we think this may have been you, tried to get in touch with him, tried to reach out. The state says that Robinson suggested or implied that he may try to take his own life here. So you can get a sense of his mindset, at least based on some of these text exchanges and what law enforcement has laid out over the course of some of these documents here. All of it, as we should note, these are the state charges here. It's possible federal charges could come.
Yeah, federal charges possible. One notable sort of omission is we didn't see any federal officials. We don't know if federal charges will be filed, although it's heavily implied that they will. One thing also is sort of the level of deceit, both with the parents. The father did something that sounded very clever. It was heard the description of the rifle that had been described by authorities, federal authorities, state authorities, and that he assumed, obviously with the pictures of Robinson himself on camera at the university, assuming this is his son, tried to get in contact with his son, trying to ask, hey, could you send me a picture of the rifle that I gave you? And of course, the son sort of ghosting him, seeming to imply, again, involvement. And also about the rifle, there was a lot of investigative work to try to figure out, was the rifle traceable? Was it bought legally, illegally? Would have been hard to trace, we now know, because this was essentially a family heirloom, something that's common in hunting families, passed down from grandfather to son, and that was the case here. So again, much more stark relief that we're seeing this case in, Hallie.
That's right. Robinson also telling his mother he had been out sick, had stayed home sick over the course of the 2 days that she had inquired about. Steve, I know you're going to stand by for us later on as we get potentially more on this. Danielle, let me go back to you here briefly, because Steve laid out what could come next here. Obviously, the death penalty that the state is seeking. What about this protective order for Erica Kirk? Is that something that is typical in the course of an investigation like this, a prosecution like this?
Sure, yes. As to prospective victims, it's usually not entered against someone's spouse, but it makes sense here because this is not some street crime or a crime of passion. This is someone who was apparently, whether by this defendant or not, targeted And so it makes sense to say, well, close members of the family may also be targeted as well. So it's not unusual for judges to enter those kinds of protective orders as sua sponte on their own or in response to a request from the prosecution.
Danny Savalos, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. We have been talking now about the developing news that has occurred over the course of the last several hours, with prosecutors laying out in detail how they say Tyler Robinson carried out this murder. We're going to play a big portion of that in case you missed it earlier. We want to basically roll that tape so you can hear for yourself how the state laid this out. Take a listen.
These are the allegations. On September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:23 p.m., Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to a large crowd on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Police found the suspected murder weapon, a bolt-action .30-06 rifle, nearby. Over the next approximately 33 hours, police conducted a manhunt for the shooter until the evening of September 11th, 2025, when Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. After shooting Mr. Kirk, Robinson hid the gun, discarded the clothing he wore when he fired the rifle, and told his roommate to delete incriminating text messages and not talk to police. Children were present at the time of the shooting. The shooting. Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk, organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on September 10th, 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at college campuses nationwide. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist, famous for these type of events, where he discusses various political issues and debates with audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. The event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. Consequently, several hundred people attended. Mr. Kirk was interacting with a crowd before the event officially got underway. Then, at approximately noon, Mr. Kirk seated himself under a portable canopy behind a table and microphone. He began speaking to the crowd and fielding questions from attendees, a format Mr. Kirk commonly used at his events. Mr. Kirk allowed his questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on his right and left, as well as some behind his canopy and others at various close locations near him. The large crowd surrounded Mr. Kirk on three sides. Temporary metal fencing separated attendees from Mr. Kirk by only a matter of feet. Directly above and behind Mr. Kirk was the UVU Hall of Flags, an indoor walkway spanning several hundred feet with floor-to-ceiling glass windows which overlooked the plaza where Mr. Kirk was seated. People were in the walkway at the time of the shooting. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is still pending. So UVU surveillance. So at the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point. As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, he looked for potential sniper positions. He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open, publicly accessible walkway. To access the suspected location, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof only slightly below. The UV officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof. He then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor between the position and Mr. Kirk's seat. He also noticed markings in the gravel rooftop, consistent with a sniper having lain on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by the elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position. Police reviewed surveillance from the camera covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing cross the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at approximately 12:15 p.m. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof and then low crawling to the area the UVU officer recognized as where the suspected sniper had dropped into a prone shooting position. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual arose and ran across the roof to the northeast. This discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify the suspect. Surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He is seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in the center, a dark baseball cap, and large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. As he proceeds across the campus, he is seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending in his right leg, consistent with a rifle being hidden in his pants. This unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen crossing the railway off the open walkway and onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. He then picks up the item and runs toward the northeast end of campus. Expanded crime scene investigation. Law enforcement officers followed the suspect's escape path to the northeast end of campus, where they believe the suspect left campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shootings. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. Each round in the rifle contained an etched inscription as follows. The fired cartridge was etched, "No Tice's bulge, OWO, what's this?" The second cartridge that was again not spent, the last 3 were not spent, were not fired. The second, "Hey Fascist," catch with arrow symbols. The third cartridge, "Oh Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao Ciao." The fourth cartridge, "If you read this, you are gay," LMAO. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with defendant was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter, so they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to try to identify the shooter through other means. The Washington County investigation. On the evening of September 11th, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, Tyler James Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Robinson's mother stated that the following to police. On September 11th, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at home homesick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspect shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry." Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." Roommate, "How long have you been planning this?" Robinson, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson again, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The F in messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke all right. I'm gonna have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2K scope. Wink, wink. Robinson again, delete this exchange. Again, Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me, RN, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Again, you are all I worry about, love. That came from Robinson. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. The search for Robinson's residence. Police executed a search warrant on Robinson's residence. During that search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near UVU. Police also found several target boards with bullet holes in Robinson's home. Now, as I stated in the beginning, when I read those allegations, these are allegations. And like the evidence set forth in this statement, those allegations, what you've heard from the media, even from state and federal officials, has not been tested in the crucible of a jury trial.
You have been listening to Jeff Gray, the Utah County Attorney, earlier laying out those minute-by-minute details on how they caught the man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. You saw the court hearing for suspect Tyler Robinson live before that. That was that virtual hearing. As prosecutors say, they will seek the death penalty. Robinson will remain in jail, no possibility of bail. He'll be in court again in just about 2 weeks.